so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
Good evening and welcome to the Hoosier Huddle Podcast. I'm Sammy Jacobs. Along with me is Alex Compton, and this is after the dust settles on Indiana's huge 56-7 win over Nebraska to move to 7-0, 4-0 in the Big Ten for the 2024 season. IU is ranked 13th in both polls coming out today. The most important poll is the college football playoff poll, but that does not come out, I believe, until November 5th, and we'll see where they sit in the initial rankings of the college football playoff. But man, what a day it was on Saturday. All the talk was IU hadn't played anybody. Nebraska's defense hadn't give up a rushing touchdown all year. They were a top 10 defense, a brick wall. We were delusional, not living in reality to think that Indiana would put up 30 points on Nebraska. You're right. They did not put up 30 points. They put up 56 in an absolute dominant win. We'll break down the win. We'll go over the injury news that came out today with Kurtis Rourke. And then, of course, more fun news with ESPN's College GameDay coming for Indiana's game against Washington next week. So, Alex, let's keep this one PG. I know you're pumped up and fired up about this with the sibling rivalry. I get it. Man, how fun was Saturday?
A lot of fun. I think trying to remember, I've been to a lot of games at the Rock now. Trying to remember one I had a better time at. I think the combination of the build-up, the atmosphere for homecoming, the weather. I mean, it was literally a perfect day to play football, perfect day to be outside. I think just combining everything, right? The nerves, being anxious for the game, being kind of excited for the first time in a long time. All of that together coming out of the bye into a shellacking. And for me, it's hard to come up with a better game that I've been to, at least at Memorial Stadium. And I know a lot of people have been to a lot more games at the Rock than I have. But yeah, I mean, thorough, totally outclassed them, thorough beatdown. And we keep talking. I saw a bunch of stuff today about the goalpost moving again and Nebraska's not that good, blah, blah, blah. Saw all of it and whatever. We'll see where everybody lands at the end of the season. But this is another game where Indiana did not play on the margins, did not have anything fluky happen, and just dominated the team. They just were totally just...
Yeah, it wasn't the score that we predicted and stuff like that, but the game went about as what you would think. Nebraska came in. We said that they were atrocious on special teams, and they were, and it cost them. Every time inside, they were 1 for 4 in the red zone with 1 touchdown and 4 fourth down stops. I know they're an interception, a fumble, but were both on 4th down too. So you'd think that if they had a competent kicker, that they kick field goals there and at least take the points, and maybe that game is a little bit more competitive. Yeah, the kick returner on after the first IU touchdown fields it and steps out at the 1. So you have your true freshman quarterback, who we said, it's his first real hostile environment. I know he played at Purdue, and Purdue hadn't gone down the toilet at that point yet. Well, maybe. Because it was after the Notre Dame 66 whatever 7 games.
In process flush, that game.
Yeah. So his first real hostile environment, and your starting drive is at the 1, and I rewatched some of the game this morning. I have to go back and rewatch it all. But, in the opening huddle, he's standing there by himself, kind of taking it all in and taking the crowd in. And I know, look, there's 87 or 88,000 people in Nebraska, and they have a great fan base and a great crowd. But it's from being in a visiting stadium and being the visitor when there had to be, of the 53,000 people there, I would say at least 49,000 of them were IU fans. And it was loud and packed, and it just looked like the moment was too big for him. And he might be good. He might be really, really good down the road, and he made some nice plays, but he looked shell-shocked from the get-go. And
I think they were ready for him. And
I mean, he's lucky that first throw did not get called for intentional grounding.
I know. In the end zone,
he was real lucky that wasn't called for intentional grounding, and for a safety. But yeah, he threw 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. They threw the ball, I think, 44 times, which is way more than anybody expected them to throw it. And a lot of the throws were short. IU did a fantastic job of tackling, and I wrote in the rapid reaction, D'Angelo Pons, Sean Axbury, and Terry Jones were my 3 defensive players. And it wasn't because they made outstanding plays, deflecting passes and stuff like that. They got off of blocks, got around linemen and tight ends, and stuck people. Terry Jones was a menace all day. D'Angelo Pons had a big stick near the goal line. I believe that was the first in the first half, and you stop him. And then Sean Asbury, he had a big tackle for loss, and then the interception that I thought that sealed the game.
Yeah,
the first drive at a halftime, Nebraska's taken forever to get down the field, ate up about 5.5 minutes of clock, and all of a sudden you go from first and goal or fourth and goal or whatever it was, pick the ball off at the 3 and take it back 77 yards and score 3 plays later and put it out of reach. Instead of it being 28-14, it's 35-7. And the place is going bonkers, and Nebraska's just done.
Yep. Yeah, and I think the key to the game really was they broke down into steps, and I did a really, really good job on first and second down, limiting those 5, 6, 7 yard plays early in the drive to put them in those 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8s to force Raiola into uncomfortable down and distances, make him make throws, move around in the pocket. IU sped him up, and you could see he's got a crazy good arm. But there were a couple throws, like rewatching the broadcast, he wasn't stepping into it. He was kind of off the back foot, slinging it around, the Mahomes or Rodgers kind of style. And you saw some high throws, you saw some short throws. He missed throws that you're going to need to hit to win games, especially on the road. So for me, that was huge. They ran the ball 29 times, averaged 2.4 yards per carry. And on the flip side, IU 33 carries, 6.5 yards a pop. Nebraska 94 total rushing yards to IU's 237. You're going to win most games if you do that. And Kurtis Rourke, I think, had maybe 20 rushing yards. I mean, this was a majority just offensive line and that 3-headed monster running back for Indiana. Again, just wearing another team down. Like mid-third quarter, fourth quarter, it did not look like Nebraska still wanted to be on the field. And we've seen that now in a couple games. And it's really refreshing with both teams coming off of a bye that Indiana was the team that was just miles well prepared, miles ahead of the preparation of Nebraska, pretty much in all 3 phases. I don't think even when they took the ball out on kickoffs, they got past the 25, I think, one time.
They didn't catch the ball on kickoffs.
Right. Yeah, they bobbled a couple. I think they had obviously the one that on the first kick of the game for IU, he catches, goes out at the 1. And then Yeah, I think they got maybe one return past the 25, and then they had that one out of bounds. But so I mean,
Well,
special teams dominated for Indiana as well.
they had the long return
Um,
where Quinn Warren stuck the guy,
yeah, that was a good return. You're right. Yep,
and
yep.
he made
But yeah,
just
it
a
was
form
just
tackle.
really refreshing, and I think in the back of all of our minds, we're still waiting for the letdown or the hey, like what's going to happen. And obviously, the Rourke injury is something we'll talk about here, but it was just really refreshing to come out, go pretty much untouched down the field on the first two drives. I know they didn't get the fourth down in the second drive. Miles Cross was wide open over the middle, but the protection broke down, and Rourke got sacked on that second drive. But you basically went right down the field to start the game and forced him to give you the right back and on that takeaway. Yeah, I don't know. It was just a beatdown, and without getting too much into the scheme, I think IU's game plan on both sides of the ball just pretty much left them clueless and with no answers. He had
Yeah,
8 touchdowns. Nebraska had 7 points. I mean, that's pretty good.
let's focus on the offense, and one aspect of the offense that we haven't really talked about or written about is the offensive line. And
Yeah.
we've talked about the running backs and stuff like that. We wrote about the offensive line last week, and it. I mean, you see highlights where Mike Koenig is blocking two linebackers coming on a blitz all by
Mm-hmm.
himself, and I believe that was on the Ellison long touchdown run. Um, and they were giving Kurtis Rourke plenty of time to find his reads and stuff like that. And yet, look, people are going to react because there's there's the brand bias. It's Indiana, and they stuck 56 on you, so it's an automatic embarrassing loss because it's Indiana, not because your team was totally unprepared. Your freshman quarterback played like a freshman, and your defense got bullied. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they just got run over. So to have an offensive line dictate, they did whatever they wanted to do.
Yep.
And Nebraska came in with two really good defensive tackles, and you rarely heard from them.
Yeah. Yeah. I was waiting for that the whole game, and all the national media and the Husker media, all that stuff. That was kind of what they were saying was going to happen. Was IU hasn't played a line like this, they haven't played a front seven like this. Gifford's going to be all over the field.
They hadn't played an
Hutmaker is going to
offense
be
like this.
Robinson's going to be everywhere. Um, didn't happen. And for a team that didn't give up a rushing touchdown all season, they were the
IU
only team
scored
to have not done
5.
that. IU had 5. So again, I think just totally outclassed in every phase of the game, every position on the field. IU's players played better, and yeah, just totally dominated. IU only gave up 1 sack. Pocket was pretty clean the whole game, honestly, and yeah, I think the rushing yards, like I said, a huge deal. Really balanced attack, almost a 50-50 split in total yards, rushing versus passing. And Matt Rule talked about it in his post-game press conference, but the RPO looks that IU was kind of throwing out there just killed them. And they had really no answer. You saw that really cool, like triple option looking RPO play to Miles Price when he caught that touchdown.
I
Couple
think they
nice
scored
runs
their
to
third
just
touchdown off of that too, with
yep,
Kalon
it just
Kalon Black.
yeah, Black, yeah. So yeah, I mean, you're giving defenses a lot to prepare for, and multiple looks in the running game and the passing game, and then the RPO game has been just lethal for Indiana this season. And I think that really stuck out again. Other couple big plays. Well, I guess backing up a step, I think we saw this, Sammy, is kind of another game where maybe this was the Justice Ellison game, but we've talked about every week. It feels like it's a different guy or two
It's
really making
everybody.
plays.
It's
Like
the
it was
everybody game.
right.
It
Like
was. I mean,
Northwestern was Keyshawn Williams. He was a little quieter. Horton really didn't get involved in the passing game. Yeah, I mean, I had 4 catches, I guess, but
I mean,
Yeah,
all four scholarship running backs that aren't Kobe Martin scored a touchdown.
mhm.
Nobody had more than 10 carries. Justice Ellison, 9 carries, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
Tyson Lawton, 8 carries, 64 yards, a touchdown. Kalon Black, 4 carries, 22 yards, a touchdown. Taven Jackson, 2 carries, 21 yards. Elijah
Yeah.
Green, 4 carries, 11 yards, touchdown. Kurtis Rourke, the sacks take away from him, but he had a couple big runs. And then you look at the passing game. I think 10 guys caught
10 guys
passes.
caught a ball. Yep.
Yeah, Miles Cross 7 for 65 and a touchdown, and you really don't even mention him because of the catches that Eliza Surratt made, the catch that Omar
Right.
Cooper made. Surratt 3 catches, 65 yards, and a beautiful touchdown from Taven. Miles Price 3 catches, 23. Like, who are you stopping on this team? Like, everybody's going to contribute. You can't take away. Okay, we're going to take away Eliza Surratt. Then they're going to go to Miles Cross and Omar Cooper. EJ Williams is coming back in.
Yep.
Anderson Kobe had a catch. Today yesterday they took care of Keyshawn Williams, 1 catch, -1 yards, but everybody else stepped up. They had 144 yards and yards after the catch as well. It's something that we talked about this week too. This offense is really good, and I don't want to hear it that they haven't played anybody, because all I heard and all I saw on our YouTube page were comments from Nebraska fans. You haven't played this defense. It's a top 10 national league defense. These two are the best defensive linemen in the country, blah, blah, blah. You're delusional. Yeah, you need to live in reality. Well, the reality is IU was better coached. They lived up. Their talent was better than Nebraska. I don't care what your star rankings were.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of G5 all-stars kicked your butt. And you saw it. And I think I really think Kirk Cigdetti's like the Michael Jordan meme, whereas I took it personally. So somebody in Nebraska said something. I don't know if he goes through the comments on every site or whatever, but somebody in Nebraska said something that, or the national people, because he tweeted about it after the game. Well, I guess we passed that test.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah, he was. I think his pregame interview, he was, I think, more fiery than he kind of has been all season. I don't know if she burst on broadcast, if they cut that out, or but it looked like winning puts people in the effing stands. Like
they cut
I don't
it
know if
out,
it was on a little delay. Yeah, it looked like he did, which is sweet. And then at the end he goes, "We're going to play well today," and then he walked away. And sure enough, they played pretty damn well, if you ask me.
And I mean the defense. Yeah, James Carpenter made plays. Linnell Carr was all over the place. Aiden Fisher again, Jalen Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Murray
nice to have
Farrell
Walker back. Yeah,
Murray Farrell got robbed of a fumble. So it's who are you stopping?
Impressive.
Terry. I mean, you had Murray Farrell started at free safety. Terry Jones started at rover. You've got so many pieces who could play somewhere else. But let's get to. And look, I don't want to leave out special teams because those are my guys. But James Evans, 1 punt, you almost didn't see him again. Nico Radicic, they don't kick field goals, but he's been perfect on extra points, and he might just set the scoring record anyway. Quinn Warren, he kicked one out of bounds, but all the rest are great. And then he had that touchdown saving tackle as well. Miles Price. Miles Price. It's too many Miles Price, Miles Rice, Miles Cross. Miles Price had the 20-yard punt return that probably would have set up a score if they got it on fourth down. They didn't. They just don't beat themselves. They had a couple penalties, but they're smart penalties. The one pass interference saved the touchdown. There were a couple other bogus pass interference calls. This team does not beat itself. You got to look at Indiana and use the eye test. This is what good teams do. destroying teams. Ohio, Michigan. Let's take Michigan for example. Last year, they played nobody up until Ohio State, but everybody was like, "Oh my God, this is the greatest team ever." That's because they have the winged helmets. If they were wearing crimson and cream, well, they haven't. Their non-conference was Bowling Green and Tumbleweed Tech and all that stuff. So I want to talk about Taven Jackson because I thought, here's the situation with Kurtis Rourke. Indiana sent out a email blast this afternoon saying that Kurtis Rourke injured his thumb. He'll be out indefinitely, but he's expected back the 2024 season. It looked like he was bleeding. There are a lot of rumors going around that he ripped his nail off and got an injection, things like that. My guess it's swollen. It's too swollen to hold the ball or throw it, and if you can't manipulate the ball, it's no good.
Yeah.
So Taven Jackson started the second
he stayed
half.
in, but look, I mean, Rourke finished. It looked like
once you go inside for 20 minutes, it's probably
he stayed in. It happened late in the first half. He threw a couple more balls. He threw one to Miles Price that was a completion that was kind of lower, so Price had to go down to get it. They took that deep shot to Price that was broken up, looked a little underthrown, and then the Hail Mary, he didn't even get it to the end zone. So, like, Rourke can definitely throw the ball 50 yards in the air, and he was about, I think it went to about the 8 or 9 yard line. So it was really short. And then came out of the locker room second half, or I guess rather he didn't. We didn't see him on the sideline. You could see Jackson warming up, and then Rourke emerges in that kind of black tracksuit, street clothes outfit. So obviously he was done. But Taven Jackson, Sammy, we're critical of him because he has all the talent and you can see it, and he's been really inconsistent. This did not look like the same guy that played earlier in the season.
Exactly. And we have not seen a ton because I didn't get down to practice all that much, and we didn't get to see that much in practice anyway. And he looked night and day better than he did against Western Illinois.
Yeah, and Charlotte too.
And Charlotte. He had command of the offense. Didn't look like they changed up too much in the scheme. He had that beautiful throw to Surratt on the sideline in the end zone. He ran the ball when he needed to. He made the right read. He probably should have been perfect on the day. Kobe dropped a pass
wide open on third down. Yep.
So
Jackson finished 7 of 8, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a
35 yarder.
Yeah, 21 yards rushing. I think that's where we'll see what the staff does. But so Jackson should have finished 8 of 8. Kobe dropped that one, probably would have gone for about 10 or 15. But he looked just much better. Ball was coming out on time. Ball was accurate. Really kind of ran the RPO game well. That second touchdown he had was on the RPO game. We'll see what the staff does. Quarterbacks coach Tino Sunseri kind of put out a cool tweet today after they put out the release that Rourke would be out for a bit here. That the strength of groups is each individual, but each individual gets their strength from the group. So basically saying, like, Taven's our guy right now, let's ride. And we'll see. You've seen the flashes. You saw the flashes last year with Tom Allen. You've seen he had that deep ball against Western Illinois that was gorgeous. And you saw the arm talent yesterday against Nebraska. We've been critical of him because he's not run the offense well. He's missed easy throws, and at times he kind of just looks not as focused or locked in as he should be. But he looked really sharp, and the offense did not miss a beat. They put up 4 touchdowns in the second half, just like they did in the first half. And for a guy that needed real reps, he got real reps against the best defense in the country, apparently. With all the starters in. They left the starting offensive line, and the 1s and 2s on the skill positions were in pretty much the whole game, which I still don't like. But so it was good, really good to see for Jackson. That ball to Surratt was just a gorgeous throw. Jackson can spin it. There's never been a question about that. He can throw the ball. and you have a week now to get ready.
Yep.
And you figure there should be some changes, Sammy, but I think the scheme
Well,
is the scheme, and at this point, you have an
they
identity.
change a percentage of the scheme anyway to attack the opponent, and Cignetti has said that all year. They change probably I forgot the number. I think it was around 20%, but he said like 20% of the game plan changes week to week, based on who we play. And I mean that's what makes this staff so great is that they've attacked people's weaknesses, and I mean, running for 5 touchdowns is not attacking Nebraska's weakness, but it was you obviously found a crack in their unpierceable armor up front, and took advantage of it. But yeah, Taven Jackson, you now have I think announcing that Rourke is out gives him a little bit of peace of mind going into practice. He knows he's going to get one's reps. And things like that. And, clearly he's put in the work as a second string quarterback. Now it's time to put all that work you've done on the side, extra in the film room and all that stuff where you're watching the one's reps from the sideline and putting it into play. And you have however many practices, 4 practices and a walkthrough probably to say, okay, I'm the guy this week. Going forward, there's no, Kurtis Rourke might play, he might not play. If he comes back, are they going to, is this all for naught and stuff like that? It's Taven's the guy this week. They believe in Taven. They have a good quarterback coach, and a great offensive coordinator and a great offensive mind in Kurt Cignetti. They'll figure it out to attack this Washington defense next week.
Yeah, and Coach Sagan, his post-game presser, obviously got asked about Jackson. People could see Rourke in the street clothes and obviously knew he got hurt. Asked about Jackson, Coach Sig said he was really proud of him. It's not hard or it's not easy to be a backup quarterback, he said, especially in this offense where they put a lot of new stuff in the passing game in every week. That's what he said in his press conference yesterday. So he said he was proud of Jackson. 2 don't get the reps, and in this offense, that's a lot of timing and read based. Your starters need reps with the starters. So Rourke probably dominates the snaps, obviously in practice, which makes sense, of course. And Sig said that it's tough to be a backup quarterback, and he was proud of how he kind of came in, ran the show, and said the team was confident, and I think that's big, right?
He also said he needed to practice better because every compliment with Kirk Cignetti is we could be better.
56-7, his post he said not perfect, which is good. It's a good mentality. I appreciate it, and it's really worked so far this year, obviously. But yeah, he said the team was confident when Jackson came in, and you could tell. I mean, they didn't look scared or
no, nobody hesitated. There was, it helps being up 28-7. But now this is the first real adversity, that we've seen IU go through. What if there's other adversity, we don't know about it. And look, they have not trailed in a game all year. They've won every game by 17 plus points. So, you
still haven't given up a point in the first quarter.
Yeah, and so you kind of had to manufacture your own adversity. This is real adversity. You're losing a quarterback who's having a Heisman caliber year, who has led this team to 7-0, who's picked apart defenses, and now he gets hurt. How do you respond? And if the second half of Nebraska is any indication, Indiana's going to be fine. Until Rourke comes back. It sucks for Rourke because he might have been one of those dark horse Heisman candidates, especially if you're sitting at 8, 9, 10-0 with Indiana and throwing 20, 25 touchdown passes, leading top 5 in the Big Ten and passing yards and things like that. Yeah, it just stinks for him because he was so good. But it seems like they responded well in the second half, if that's any sign of it going forward. And there's no reason to think anything else other than that.
Yeah, Jackson, I think obviously Rourke is your starter. He's been terrific, right? But he's talented, and we'll see. I think the scheme and having Sig and Shanahan and Sinceri all be kind of very quarterback friendly really helps in a situation like this. Nick Saban said that on game day last weekend, and we'll talk about game day next weekend in a little bit here. But he said Coach Signetti is really, really good with quarterbacks, and that obviously is a super important trait to have. So that comes up great in a situation like this. They're going to need that kind of experience and that kind of skill set. But we'll see. And kind of last thing on Jackson before we switch here, I would just say really kind of excited for him to have this opportunity. Last year with just the chaos of the roster and the team in the season, went back and forth with Sorsby at the beginning of the season. Didn't know if he was going to play, who was the starter. We're not announcing starters. We're changing the starter every week, all that kind of stuff. When he was playing, he was excited. If he wasn't playing, he was happy for Sorsby. He was happy for the guys. Same thing this year. He could have transferred, right? Easy to say. They brought in a sixth-year senior quarterback. I'm definitely not going to start. I'm out of here. Stuck it out. He's been, from what we can tell, team first, super excited for Rourke, super excited for the guys when they make plays.
I mean,
Rourke had his sideline.
I mean, Rourke had his arm around him coming off the field after the game, and that says all you need to. And I know people make fun of the LEO mantra that was kind of played out, but that's kind of tangible evidence of, hey, this is where they're a brotherhood. It's hey, you got to pick me up now,
right?
So,
yeah. So I'm really excited for Taven. I trust at this point the staff will play to his strengths and make him feel comfortable and let these receivers and these running backs make plays. Washington's weakness, I would say, as a whole team is definitely their run defense. So thinking about offense and defense and special teams altogether.
IU might run for 1,000 yards if they put up 200 and something yards on the greatest run defense that has ever, stomped the Midwest.
Right.
So
we'll see, but the staff might just play to his mobility a little bit more. He's definitely more mobile than Rourke, but we'll see. But just overall, I'm really, bummed that Rourke is hurt. We talked about that before the season as one of your top guys you got to keep upright. They've done a good job of that.
And it wasn't like he was hit and just pounded.
On a hand.
It's a freak injury. He hit his hand on a helmet. It happens. But it's kind of a freak injury.
Yeah.
And all that stuff.
And then my buddy, I got like a med school buddy, last thing on the quarterbacks, but if he did, cut his finger or lose his nail or whatever, any sort of like stitches or glue, he said to really like take hold and not open is like a week and a half to 2.5 weeks most of the time. So if that's actually what happened, if he, cut his thumb up or lost his nail or whatever, hopefully you're looking at maybe 2 games, but we'll see. And I think big test for Jackson on Saturday. We'll be super excited to watch. And obviously we'll have much more on that during the week.
Yeah. The next week's coming up. And I want to talk about the fan base and the atmosphere on Saturday. We touched about it a little bit on it at the top of the show. But this is what we've been talking. I've been running the site since 2013. I've been following IU football since 2002. And when I try to sell people on college football, that if you could package that up and sell that to IU fans, is, hey, you got to come down to Bloomington. That's what you do. The happy hour before the game must have worked. I would say 90% of the crowd was in their seats. By the time the team ran out of the tunnel, which was probably 10 minutes before kickoff, they were loud. They stayed until the game was out of reach. They were into it, and it was just, the tailgating was fun. People were there early. It looked like an absolute zoo on Big Ten kickoff on TV. So the energy was just awesome. Wish the band would play more in the stands instead of all the rock music, but that's what happens when you have nobody in the stands for 5, 6, 7 years, and you have to fill awkward silence with noise. But the
That
big
yeah,
news,
actually on that, another like quick one on Signetti's post game presser, they asked him about the crowd and the atmosphere, and I'll butcher the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of like, I'm always on Scott and his team for what the in-game entertainment and the music choice is like, which was kind of interesting to me that he knows playing music and having stuff going on during the game keeps people one in the stands and then two into the game.
yeah,
And I've never heard Kevin Wilson or Tom Allen ever like mention that as long, or at least that I can remember. But that was kind of really interesting to me that he mentioned like he is actively talking to Scott Dolson and Scott's staff about what's going on the speakers, what's going on during the game. I thought that was kind of really interesting.
I mean, that just seems like Kirk Cincinnati. He's
Yeah,
very detail oriented and things like that. And you're kind of starting I did not like jump around. Like jump arounds, Wisconsin, just don't
right,
play it.
right.
But
Yeah,
the we will rock you. Keep it going. You might have started a tradition there. Just let that be your third and fourth quarter transition song. This is when you build traditions, when you're good. That's what Wisconsin did. I think Jump Around started in like 98 or something. Um, and when they just started to turn the corner and be a really tough program. So kudos to them, stadium staff. I think they still had issues with concession lines. At least that's what my brother told me when grabbing a beer. But look, the lines are going to happen. People are going to have to be patient a little bit. But
yeah. Yeah,
the good
lines
news,
for, I mean, concessions seemed long. I only went out there once, but I got a couple beers from one of the guys with the, coolers walking around. So I didn't have to wait in the line.
it's
Bathroom
old
line
school.
was longer than I expected. Moved okay, but there were definitely lines. Yeah, it was great to see everybody in there well in advance of kickoff. That was really nice to see.
Yeah, that was a great idea. Discounted hot dogs, beers,
Hmm.
sodas, stuff like that. Get people to come in from their tailgate a little bit early, which is tough, especially at a noon game. But let's talk about next week. People have been clamoring, and I want to give a shout out to Respectable Adam. This guy started the hashtag Pack the Rock. He tweets it out. It has to be every single day, multiple times. And IU one has sold out the rest of the season. So
Hmm.
Respectable Adam, the hashtag Pack the Rock is accomplished. The
Yes.
next
Yeah,
is
4 in a row. 4 in a row. Very nice.
yep. The next is College GameDay is coming on Saturday for Indiana, Washington. The game is not being moved back to 3:30. And I kind of joked with a couple other buddies that this might be the first time that College GameDay has covered a BTN alternate channel nooner um, as their marquee game of the
Right.
week. But
Yeah.
they're coming to Bloomington. We'll see where they set up. There should be a nice tribute for Lee Corso. Hopefully he makes a trip. But if it's
Yep.
anything like Big Noon, Fox's Big Noon kickoff show, it's going to be loud, crazy. They'll have Pat McAfee and his $100,000 kick. So maybe, hopefully, they pick a soccer player or something like that, and it's a good showing. But that's huge news. This is what happens when you have a football program who's good, and it's great for everybody. Every other single program gets lifted up because of this. The town makes more money. School makes more money. You're gonna, they're gonna talk about Indiana basketball. They're gonna talk about all these other things that just with the attention that is brought to IU, and
Yeah.
it's going to be a 2 hour spotlight on IU like it was on Big Ten kickoff.
Yeah, it was cool. Lots were packed. Big noon kickoff crowd looked great. Barstool, I get it's not a thing for everybody. Totally get that, but
I
they
didn't
draw
know that.
eyes. They draw attention. They draw eyes. That was full too. So that was really cool on Saturday yesterday. That there were kind of huge crowds behind both of those sets, and obviously game day is kind of the marquee show. Hope Coach Corso makes the trip. I don't think he's been on it the last couple weeks. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Like you said, Sammy, they're going to do multiple interviews, kind of exclusive interviews on there. I'm sure we'll have coach on there. I'm sure they'll have a couple players on there. And it's basically 2 hours on national television as a recruiting pitch. And
Three, I think it
3
starts
hours. Yeah,
at 9.
3 hours. Yeah. So we'll see if a certain quarterback recruit who shall remain nameless will be on campus this weekend. But I mean, you have a 3 hour spotlight to talk about the culture change. You can show it with all the fans there. You have highlights of 7 wins in a row now to show. And you could talk about what it's like to be ranked 13th in the AP poll, which is pretty damn cool. Yeah, lots of good. The one thing that makes me nervous, and it was kind of what I was nervous about heading into the game yesterday, was you have all these eyes, all this attention. Everyone tells you how great you are. Your Cinderella story. You're making all this history, breaking all these records. You got to block that out and you got to win. If you lose to Washington at home on Saturday, not that it's a massive blow, but you lose a lot of great momentum that you've built.
I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, it hasn't been so far. And I really liked having the bye the week before Nebraska. It kind of let you reset after starting 6-0 and getting ranked and everybody telling you you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. But now you have to kind of flush it and start over.
There's no reason to think that it's going to affect this. They haven't given you a reason to think it. Other staffs, it has until it happens. There's no reason to think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
and
which is
stuff
fair.
like
which
that.
is fair. Yeah,
yeah.
But it just back of my head, I'm just like a lot of attention, a lot of eyes, which is great, and that's what we want. That's what we need. Right. But yeah, it's on the staff and the players to block that out, and so far they've definitely done that.
Yeah, and I think that PTSD, which is in the back of your head, that IU football PTSD, is starting to kind of wash away. There could have been a lot of moaning and groaning, and oh no, Kurtis Rourke is out. Here comes a collapse, and all that stuff. And you didn't see that from IU. You saw a total collapse on the Nebraska side. But you did not see a collapse on IU. You could have seen it at Northwestern when they came back to 27-24. That didn't happen. You could have had it when IU turned the ball over 4 times against Maryland and arch nemesis Billy Edwards was on the field throwing touchdowns. Didn't happen. You could have seen it when they went out to UCLA and traveled 3 time zones. Didn't happen. I mean, they put up 77 points against Western Illinois. You come back and people toot your horn against Charlotte, and Charlotte's hanging with you early. You blew them out. It hasn't happened. And so I get it. I understand it. And I get the PTSD, but it's not it. There have been multiple chances for that to creep into this football program right now, and it just hasn't happened. So there's no reason to believe that it's going to happen. Look, losses eventually are going to happen because that's every football team loses a game in a coach's tenure. It's bound to happen. But until it does, your belief that you're going to go 12-0 and make the playoff just gets higher and higher. So till it happens, there's no reason to believe it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll see. I think we'll have tons, obviously, on the Washington game, their first Big Ten game against Indiana on Saturday. They have to make that 3 time zone trip that teams have really struggled with so far.
And it's a 9 a.m. body clock.
Right, exactly. 9 a.m. local time for Washington kick.
And they've come east to Rutgers on a short week. For a night game on a Friday night, they looked rusty. Their kicker missed 3 or 4 kicks. They lost to a Rutgers team whose fan base on the message boards are already calling for Schiano to be fired and that he's a fraud and all that stuff. So they're nut jobs in every fan base. You saw them go against Iowa, 2 weeks ago? Travel 2 time zones to Iowa. They let up 40 points to Iowa. And I was making parody songs of, about Brian Ferentz. So it's tough. And here's another thing. I don't want to hear any more complaints that it's embarrassing that the conference is making them play 9 a.m. body clock games. This is what they signed up for.
Right.
This is why you left the Pac-12. You wanted to chase the check and play big-time Big Ten football on the East Coast with more eyeballs. You're going to have to travel east. If you don't want to do it, go back to the Pac-12, say, I'm sorry I broke up your conference of champions, and return the check.
Yeah, not going to happen. So I will gladly welcome them on Saturday. It's interesting. Another thing we did talk about this on our season preview, but this will be, I believe, the fourth straight game. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Sammy, that IU's opponent will be coming off a bye week. So Washington was off this week. So another week to watch
UCLA
for IU.
Northwestern,
Nebraska.
Washington.
So I guess fourth. Yeah, so fourth straight, fourth Big Ten team so far, coming off a bye. That's a storyline, of course. They got kind of shellacked at Iowa. They lost 40-16 to an Iowa team that just lost to Michigan State. So we'll see. I guess in their 5 kind of power games so far. So they opened with Weber State and Eastern Michigan. They won those 35-3 and 30-9. But in their 5 games against kind of power schools so far, they lost at home to Washington State 24-19. They beat Northwestern 24-5. They lost to Rutgers 21-18, beat Michigan 27-17, and then lost to Iowa 40-16. So they've 27 is kind of their max output so far against power competition. But otherwise, they've scored 19, 24, 18, and 16. So, again, I think you're looking at a situation. Jackson will be a huge storyline, probably the biggest storyline of the game.
Yep.
But you're looking at another situation, kind of like Nebraska here, where can Washington keep up with Indiana's offense?
Yep.
I think that will be what you need to watch for. And obviously, losing Rourke, the captain of this just well-oiled machine that's running perfectly, is a huge storyline. But that's kind of what to watch for. I think when I look at this game for early thoughts, they're going to have to score more than, I think, that 27, which is their max output so far, to have a chance in this one.
Yeah, we'll get into Washington later. We'll have Rhett Lewis on the podcast on Tuesday later this week, and we'll have our traditional pregame show with TJ Inman as well. But yeah, you look at how's Taven going to lead the offense? How's Washington's body language going to be and energy level going to be on a 9 a.m. kick? And Washington has good players. I mean, they have a lot of skill guys who are very good, and some good offensive and defensive linemen, linebackers. They're not a slouch team, but they did
Jonah Coleman, just stud running back. Will Rogers has played a lot of good football, and I know totally new staff and reset a lot of the roster. This team played in the national championship game last year, so there's something to be said about that, regardless of how much of the roster has changed over. Jordan Shaw, who used to be at IU, is on Washington as a corner. Will be fascinating. Washington has some dudes for sure. So
I mean, it should be another good game to watch, and if Indiana's offense could still click, they'll take care of business at home. So that does it for tonight's show. Alex, thanks for joining us. As always, you could follow us on Twitter at Hoosier_Huddle. Please like, rate, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment, all that stuff. We had too many Nebraska people commenting on it last week, and kind of stuffed them in the trash can. So thank you, Kirk Signetti, for that. A lot of bookmark comments last week. And then, you could come to HoosierHuddle.com as well for all the pregame readings leading up to the game, all the breaking news and things like that. So a lot of news coming out this week with the injuries, with game day coming to town. and all that stuff. But we'll have you covered over at HoosierHuddle.com. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, and thank you for listening.